Organic humans from Maverick PT. We're going to go after the common lunge matrix with the uncommon shoulder to overhead press matrix. Kind of further the loading of our system. 2 videos that we've done now. These are basic presses. Movement happens 3-dimensionally, meaning we use a combination of these presses in all dimensions when we move, when we rotate. So it's not specifically one dimension, but a combination rather. So we'll get into some kind of progressive presses as we go along over time. We're going to start back with our standard shoulder to overhead press lunge, but this time we're going to go overhead. So we have our anterior lunge, our sagittal plane press, but overhead. But overhead. Now we're going to go sagittal plane lunge with our uncommon frontal plane press overhead. So you can already see in terms of the hips and the feet and the ankles how well we're able to kind of load from the top down to really elicit a really sweet, rad little response throughout that whole chain. If we're not able to successfully kind of 3-dimensionally have the mobility we need to do the things we need to do function-wise, we're not going to have the strength to be able to consistently and efficiently repeat our efforts. We're now going to add rotation. So our uncommon transverse plane presses. So anterior lunge, transverse plane presses. As you're in the lunge position, goal is to be consistent, efficient. We're going to make mistakes, it's part of life. We're now going to go frontal plane lunge with uncommon shoulder overhead presses. So frontal plane lunge, we're going to go backwards and overhead for our sagittal plane press. For frontal plane lunge, shoulder to overhead. Great humbling little activities. The stronger you get, the less resistance externally you should be using. We're now going to go frontal plane lunge with uncommon frontal plane press. I don't know if you guys in the background, the Maverick PT can hear all those coyotes squealing. That means got some good primal stuff rolling. We're now going to add the uncommon transverse plane press to the frontal plane lunge. Sink your butt down and in. Don't let that hip bail. Press across. Shoulder to overhead high. 2 more. Shoulder, overhead high, with a cross. Take up the slack in the frontal plane with the lunge. Go after some more mobility. Rotational plane. We're now going with our transverse plane lunge, our common rotational lunge, to our uncommon presses. Again, base foot pointed forward like 12 o'clock on a clock. Let's go ahead and roll 135 degrees. Shoulder to overhead. Shoulder to overhead. Nice, good big lunge. Sometimes good to even start out with just using nothing but body weight for these. These are very challenging little activities. We're now going to go uncommon frontal plane press with the transverse plane lunge. Great way to attack thoracic spine, as well as that scapulothoracic junction, as well as the hips and the feet and ankles. We're now going to go transverse plane on transverse plane, common rotational lunge, uncommon rotational press. Pressing shoulder to head high across the midline of the body. So rotational lunge, boom. As you can see, we take up the slack in a hurry with that lunge. And last one. So what we look for, activity-wise, our program design, look to be able to progress within an activity, not to continue that activity after activity after activity, but to play with and to tweak what our lower extremity is doing. Where our feet, our knees, and our hips, using those guys as drivers, kind of load some things from the bottom up, then also use our upper extremity to load things from the top down to kind of sequence that chain reaction. Ultimately, again, gives us our mobility throughout our tissue, throughout our joints, so that we can re-educate with movement. Take these for a spin, guys. This is a pretty rad little activity. It will absolutely shred you up, tear you up.